Okay, so I'm Second Lieutenant Andrew Farrington. I've been a reserve for 3 years now. So I started off as a soldier. I was a recovery mechanic to start with. I then went down the commissioning route, going to the Royal Military Academy Sandhurst, and I've been a commissioned officer for 12 months now. I originally joined the reserves out of university. So I did an engineering degree, and I sort of was considering joining the regular army, and I felt the reserves was a way to get the benefits of being in the armed forces, and also the benefits of being a civilian doing an engineering role in Civvy Street, as it's called. I think it is the diversity of the things that are on offer, so that you can 1 week be training in sort of doing military law or doctrine and discipline, and some real nitty-gritty, deep sort of historical studies that the military is very, very proud and of its history, and also very aware of its history. So it's a very academic-led organisation. And then you've got like the next week, or within the same parade night, that you'll be doing some intense physical activity and sort of with some of the best physical training instructors that the world has to offer. You've also got on top of that like intense professionalism from your fellow soldiers and officers who are the best at what they do, the best engineers on offer again, so that there's a huge amount to learn with them. And then there is nowhere else that you can work with the equipment and the scales that the army has to offer, so that there's nowhere that you could deploy out on exercises with vehicles in the numbers or of the types, and do the sorts of tactical manoeuvres that you're involved with inherently being part of the army. So in terms of deployments, I was involved in OpRescript, the Army's response to the COVID situation. So we were deployed out helping the NHS supply chain, just adding extra manpower to ease the huge backlog of orders and throughput of work that they had. So that was a particular highlight, because it is in essence what is at the heart of why we want to be reserves, because it's to be able to serve the community and serve something very real and tangible that you can't argue that you're making a real difference directly on your doorstep was a real privilege, really, I guess. There's other things that I was involved in the battalion's boxing team, so I got to go and train with Steve Collins and did sort of like a training session with him, and that was really good, because I wouldn't have got that opportunity otherwise. And I must admit, I wasn't interested in boxing. I'd never stepped inside a ring before being part of the Army Reserves, but the battalion were putting a team together, so I threw my hat in the ring, for want of a better phrase. So that was a particular highlight, and of course walking up the steps of old college at Sandhurst is always going to have to be a highlight. So I'm currently employed with Aircraft Research Association as an aerodynamics engineer. So my day job entails research in aerodynamics for aircraft and missile systems, both civil aircraft and military aircraft. We work in both computational and experimental aerodynamics, so we work with a large-scale wind tunnel, but also run a high-power computing cluster to run computational fluid dynamics on systems. So that's what I'm doing 9 to 5, as it were. But my work's incredibly supportive of the Army Reserves, coming from an MOD space, and with a lot of our clients being MOD based or contractors. They support the reserves completely, and that they give me additional time off. So part of the reserve service is a 2-week deployed exercise. So ARA give me that time off as additional leave away, and they also support in a lot of crossover events. So there's a lot of crossover in STEM activities. So they give leave for any activity that's been organised by the Army that's in the STEM sphere. That is quite interesting, because I think that starts off sort of like quite intangible, as in, so there's like an inherent confidence thing that you get being part of the military, and that straight away that you're thrown in with people who clearly know what they're on about, and that you have a way of discussing with subject matter experts, and a way of noticing where they have real knowledge in their subject, and that's transferable direct into your civilian career, where you're expected to be that subject matter expert straight away. So that's sort of like, I guess, quite an intangible crossover. There's other sort of like more tangible things, such as my chartership for being a chartered engineer. I'm ahead of my peer group, going for chartership based purely on the management experience and leadership experience I have got through the Army Reserves. So because my civilian career is so technically focused and so science focused, I don't do much in the way of leadership and management, whereas the opposite is probably true for the Army Reserves, is that there's less technical aspects, but there's a lot of management and leadership. I think I'd say just do it straight away. Like don't think too much about it. I think that the CEO sort of like alluded to that there's people can probably get wrong ideas or wrong impressions about what the Army is, and that I would agree that whatever you're thinking that the Army Reserves is probably isn't true, or is part true, like whatever that is. I think that there's a lot that isn't known, and that isn't necessarily known until you're in. It is a long process, and that it takes a long time to get through the recruitment process and the training process, and that especially within the engineering disciplines, that the training just takes a long time. But if you stay with it, I guess is my main take home. Yeah, just stay with the process, and it's definitely worth it. It's a real close-knit bunch of people that we're really good at. The social aspects and the camaraderie is really really important, and it's a really good thing, because at the end of the day, some of the things that you do as an Army Reserve are tough. They're really tough. Like there's certainly times where it's, that there'll be a vehicle that's bogged in, it's stuck, and it's raining, and it's sort of like it's muddy, and you're just wet and cold. But it's at the end of the day, it's the fact that you're stood next to someone that you want to work for. You want to work for your sergeant majors. You want to be working for your officer commanding, your commanding officers, and that at the end of the day is why you're then there in the wet and the cold, doing the job that you ultimately like, but perhaps at the time you're questioning whether you do like it quite so much.